Hey guys, welcome and thanks for joining me on my new channel. I'm going to be talking about cinematography, color grading, cameras, lenses, gear reviews, technology, everything that interests me along those lines. So if you think that's something that could be of interest to you, please do consider subscribing. I'm also going to be talking today specifically about color grading people of color in Davinci Resolve 18. So again, if that's something you think is going to be of interest, then stick around after the intro and we'll get straight to it. So when trying to get the perfect grade, the first thing to consider is that there is no perfect grade. There are many ways to do things in Resolve and in any other NLE that you might have. And also depends on the production and what it is the client is going for and what it is you're going for. But in terms of what I do, I shoot stock video mainly. And so I'm looking for something that's neutral, but still has a little bit of flavor. Of course, everyone's workflow is different, but for me, there are three things that are super important in my workflow. First of all is the conversion, like how am I going from log to Rec 709? The second thing is the exposure, whether or not the skin is too bright or too dark. And the third is the skin tone, where it falls on the skin tone line. So let's jump into Resolve and I can show you step by step my process and my workflow. And so we have clip number 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so as you can see, the clips don't look like there's a lot of contrast and a lot of saturation. That's because they're in log format, they're in BRAW or Blackmagic RAW. I used to use LUTS before to do the conversion from BRAW to Rec 709, but now I use a very clever thing that Davinci Resolve does, which is color management. With Davinci Color Management, you actually have the conversion done under the hood by Resolve. So you don't have to use any external LUTs. You don't have to do any guesswork in terms of trying to adjust the contrast or the saturation. It's all done perfectly for you. So what I've done is I've got some templates set up here, or one template particularly for the color managed. And when I do this, boom, you see how it's changed? All of a sudden, it's automatically converted from BRAW in log format to Rec 709. Okay, so then I'll jump over to color. Okay, now, so as you can see, we've done a conversion from log to Rec 709. So obviously we can work on it in Davinci Resolve. So the next stage is to look at the exposure. In terms of this workflow, what I've done is I've created some power grades. So for example, I could use any of these previous grades to make it easier to give me a shortcut. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with this. Deactivate these. Okay, with all these deactivated, what we have here is pretty much what came in from the conversion. So if we put on false color now, you can see that this is the important bit here now. In terms of exposure, there's several ways of doing it. Some people use IREs, but I use false color. So when I'm shooting, I use false color to get what I think is the right exposure and get the skin looking good. And I use the same scale of false color in Davinci Resolve when I'm color grading. And in this case, I'm using the Blackmagic scale for the false color. Because I shoot with Blackmagic, I also grade with Blackmagic, and it's just a lot easier for me to see. So if we jump back in and we're looking at the exposure here now. Okay, let's look in the camera raw tab. There are different ways to adjust exposure in Resolve, obviously. You can use this ISO down here. It basically allows you to adjust the ISO as if you were adjusting it in your camera, because obviously you're shooting in BRAW. But the other way of doing it is here. And then obviously you can do it in a nodal fashion using some of the nodes that you have here. But depending on the project and depending on what I'm doing, I like to have this set at the ISO that I shot at, which is normally for the Blackmagic camera, it'd either be 400 or 3200 ISO. And then sometimes I tweak the exposure here, or sometimes I tweak it within the node structure. So for example, I use false color to give me an idea of where the skin should be sitting. So for example, if I do this and I neutralize that, to me, I can tell that it's going to be too dark. Because how I know it's going to be too dark? Because if I look here, you can see there's just a little bit of this lime green here and a little bit of this pink. So if we take that off, we can see that looks very, very dark. So you can tell that's no good. Again, and if you push it here, you can see that her skin is mainly gray, light gray all over, and there's a bit of green, and then there's a bit of dark. So I know straight away that that's going to be too exposed, too bright. So if you take that off, again, you can see that's too bright. But if you bring it down, let's reset this, and you bring it up to about there, you can see that she has a bit of this dark hair, this dark gray hair. She has a bit of highlights, which is this gray, this bright gray hair, and a bit of this pink and a bit of green. So you can see that looks to me more like the exposure sitting where it needs to be. Of course, you can tweak it a little bit. You can tweak it, if you tweak it like so using this exposure, you can find something that kind of feels good. To me, I think probably around here feels right for this clip and for what I'm trying to do with it in terms of stock. And then we can double check, put the false color back on and double check and see what it looks like. Turn it down a little bit more. So I think I'm happy with that. I think I'm happy with that, how it looks in terms of the exposure. So what I would do now is I would put on the Dehancer. The reason I put on the Dehancer is basically it gives me a bit more of a film look. So then I need to go back and double check the actual exposure, and you can see it's changing. If you put it on, it does change exposure a bit, and it changes the relative exposure. So what I would do is I put that back on, and then I would, for example, go in and tweak this down until it looks about right, and then I'll double check it again here. You can see that's about where it should be. And right now it's undersaturated, so it needs some more saturation. So again, I go to my node tree and I turn these different saturations on, and you see it's a bit too saturated. So what I do is I go in here and I tweak my color boost down, so until it looks there. Okay. But the next thing we need to look at is, now that we've done the exposure, we've done the conversion, we need to look at the skin tone. There's many ways of highlighting the skin in Davinci Resolve, but I'm going to show you the technique that I use for doing all my skin. Okay, so we hop over to the edit page and select the clip, and we go to cropping. So what I do for speed is I turn the color grading off, turn the grade off, and with that it makes my computer a bit more responsive. And what I'm doing here is just making a box on her skin, like so. And I turn that back on. And then I hop back over into color, and we look to see where the skin lies on the skin tone line. And if you can't see the skin tone line, then you need to go in here to settings, and you turn on the skin tone indicator. You need to make sure that this is checked. So once that's checked, you're good to go. So we hop back over to camera raw, and I can see that it's just below the skin tone line. So that means it's leaning over towards green. So I'm going to tweak that slightly so that it comes up, and it's just above it now. So that's good for me. So now we hop back over to edit, and then we go to the cropping, and we take that off, and then we go back here. Now go to the parade. And you can see we can do some more adjustments in here to get this where we want. For example, we can adjust the black point slightly, so it's just a little bit, the whole thing comes down a little bit more. You can also adjust the tonal contrast if that's too much, too little. Okay, so that's good. That's good as a starting point. Okay, so let's look at the next one. So again, what I could do to make my life easy would be just basically hit this key, and then I copy the grade from the previous. Again, you can see that is, let's have a look at the skin where that is now. So again, you can see that he has the highlight where the brightest bit of light is hitting his face on this side here. It's gray, it's this light gray, and that's what you want. You want the brightest bit to be this light gray, and the bits that are not in the brightest bits, you want them to be this green, this lime green, or this other darker gray. And you don't want to have too much, like for example, people of color, if their skin is dark or medium dark, you don't want to have this really bright bit of gray. You don't want to have that over their whole skin. You want to have that only on the brightest bits of skin. So as you can see here, I feel that's kind of near where I want it to be. I mean, you can always tweak it. If you wanted to make it a little more moody, you can bring it down like that. Let's see where that is. See, you can say that that's okay, but maybe it's a little bit too dark for what I want. So I'll bring it up a little bit. Let's have a look. Look at false color again. Let's have a look here now. Okay. Right, let's have a look. So again, like I said, the brightest part of his skin is this gray here, and the other side is the lime green and dark gray. So I think that's acceptable, that's working. So let's have a look, but let's have a look where his skin falls on the skin tone line though, to make sure that that is correct, because we may need to change that. So again, we just undo the grade. We just move, create a nice little square there, put the grade back on, we hop over to color, and we set this back to Vectorscope, and we can see bang on, he's bang on there. We can also, the other thing we can do is you can do 2x zoom, and you can see, so you can see it a bit better, and it's bang on the skin tone line. So we know that that's skin tone is in the right place. Okay, so let's have a look at this final clip. So this one is outdoors, so we can try doing the same thing again. We basically copy the grade along, but I can tell just looking at this that it is overexposed because the skin is just overexposed. So if we want to double check that, we look at false color again, and you can see same thing I'm saying. For someone of her complexion, she has I'd say medium dark complexion, you don't want to be seeing that much white in the, or that much gray in the false color. So let's set that back down, let's reset that, and that looks to me more like it should be. So, and then if you take that off, you see there's just a bit of that gray there on her nose and on there, and obviously teeth and stuff. And you can see that looks more like it should be. You could probably push it to about there, but let's double check that. You see again, there is that gray on the brightest bits, but then you have the darker bits on the skin, and you have the lime green in the other bits. Okay, so let's jump back over to the edit, and again let's turn the grade off, and let's create a little skin box, as it were. So we can just isolate the skin, turn that back on, and head back over to color, and we can see there now it is above the skin tone line, so there's too much magenta. So we want to bring this back down till it's in the center. So now we want to take the cropping back off and go back, and we see that looks more like it should be. So let's again have a look at the exposure. Let's see, so it's at 0.23, but let's take that down to 0, and I think that can still work. I think that's fine as it is. So I think that's perfectly exposed. So you can see it was filmed at 400 ISO, and of course there's still a lot of adjustments you can do. You can adjust the color temperature, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just showing you this workflow. So if you're adjusting that, you might want to go to the parade. You might want to just adjust these so that they're even. Okay guys, so that's it. That's some insight into color grading, people of color in Davinci Resolve. If you found some value in this, please do consider subscribing and hitting the like button. And other than that, I'll see you in the next tutorial or the next tips and tricks. Thanks for watching.